Invincible returns to finish Season 2 on Prime Video, with Episode 5 dropping audiences right back into the action and emotion that they've come to expect from the show. Mark is shown to be even more out of his depth than ever before, attempting to balance personal responsibilities with his life as a superhero. There's both heart and humor present in the debut of Part 2. Episode 5 picks up with the brewing Sequid invasion that Season 1 introduced. Millions of alien parasites are on their way to Earth to take control of the planet, and Mark is unwittingly roped in to help stop them. Back on Earth, things aren't going much better, with the Lizard League picking up their game in their latest scheme of world domination. On Thraxa, shortly after the brutal fight against the Viltrumites, Mark is bloody and bruised. He's helped back to the city, and Andressa tells him not to take the blame for what happened. After a short time jump, Mark is helping to rebuild. Nielzot tells Mark a ship is ready to take him home, but Mark says everything will be fine in his absence. Andressa urges Mark to go home and take his brother with him. Back on Earth, Debbie finishes work and is gifted with wine. Before she can drink any, Mark gets home and stuns her with his brother and what happened. She's unsure what to do but forbids Mark from dropping out of college, and Mark doesn't want to get Cecil to take care of his brother. Debbie says she'll take some time off work to figure out what to do. Cecil the Android. At the Global Defense Agency, Donald interrupts a briefing to try to talk to Cecil. He's ignored at first, but when he orders everyone out of the room, Cecil pays attention. Donald wants to know what's happened to him, as he doesn't remember Omni-Man's attack and he's got wires in his arm. Cecil takes him to a white room and shows Donald he's now an android, and only his brain was left intact. Donald begins to panic, especially as Cecil says that he's better off without his memories, though Donald retorts it's only better for Cecil. At college, Mark interrupts William's study. Mark tells him what happened on Thraxa, and William says that because he was gone for 2 months, Mark needs to see the dean of the college. Mark goes to see Amber first but is interrupted by Cecil, who's frustrated Mark disobeyed orders and didn't check in. Mark says everything seemed fine without him, especially as Cecil knows about his brother. Cecil threatens to take him from Mark. But once Mark agrees to check in with Cecil, he calls his team off. Mark sees Amber, and the pair catch up. Amber has had a rough 2 months. Her granddad died and she failed a test. Donald stares at the android, which chokes him. It's just in his imagination though, as a woman tells him their long-range scanners are picking up something. At the Guardians of the Globe HQ, Monster Girl is training against Duplicate. Ruddy tries to warn Immortal about Amanda's backward aging, but she overhears and yells at him for being controlling. Rex mocks Ruddy about his girl trouble but is hilariously interrupted by Cecil, who randomly teleports in. He warns them about the Sequids and reveals that Shapesmith is a Martian, getting him to explain why he's here. Stopping the Sequids, Shapesmith says he's always wanted to visit Earth, so when Invincible and the astronauts came, Shapesmith knocked one out and took his place. The Sequids find him, form a hive mind, and take over Mars. Cecil stops the other Guardians from punishing Shapesmith, and Immortal tells him that Bulletproof, Black Samson, Monster Girl, and Shapesmith will go to stop the Sequids. Ruddy volunteers to join them. Adam Eve is done with being a superhero after hurting people in Chicago and recklessly stopping Kilkennan. She lives at home. Rex visits her to remind her of the good she does and reassures her that the family she saved from Kilkennan will make a full recovery. He then asks her to help with the Sequids. Debbie is struggling to find a food Mark's brother likes. Mark asks what she did with Nolan's books, to which she replies she threw them out. Mark is taken aback by this, as he wants to use them to find a clue to defeat the Viltrumites. Before this can go further, Cecil wants Mark to help stop the Sequids. Cecil offers to look after Mark's brother, but Debbie refuses. On the ship, Eve and Mark hug and catch up. Shapesmith explains that the Martian warship could hold millions of Sequids, and the Martians piloting the ship might be able to help them. Ruddy says he has a plan to sneak aboard, but Shapesmith says the warship will shoot them down. Lo and behold, missiles are fired at the ship, which has no defensive capabilities. Eve protects them all in a bubble and they float aboard the ship. Bulletproof attracts the massive Sequids, and fighting breaks out. Ruddy manages to stun several and says if the team can hold the Sequids off for 5 minutes, he can amplify the blast. Eve generates another protective bubble, but the sheer amount of Sequids overwhelms her and knocks her out. This leaves Ruddy defenseless, and it's this cliffhanger audiences are left on. How does Invincible Season 2 Episode 5 end? Does Rex Splode survive? As the other Guardians stop the Sequids, Rex, Shrinking Ray, and Duplicate relax at HQ and order food. Before they can eat it, Cecil alerts them to an attack on a US base by the Lizard League. They go to stop them but are surprised to find the Lizard League have upped their game and are harder to fight. Tate and Shrinking Ray are shockingly killed in the fight. Rex tries to crawl away but gets his hand bitten off. King Lizard puts a gun to his head, and Rex says to shoot him. Lizard doesn't do so in this episode, making it unclear if Rex will be alive for much longer in the next one. Invincible Season 2 Episode 5 Mid-Credit Scene. In a mid-credit scene, Alan the alien is revealed to be still alive, and now has jacked muscles. Thetis apologizes for turning off his life support, saying that either Alan would become strong enough to take on the Viltrumites or would die. Thetis also reveals he's a Viltrumite who rebelled against the Empire, and Alan needs to seek out the other Viltrumite who did the same thing, Mark, and bring him to Thetis. Thetis thinks Mark is the key to winning the war. What did you think of Invincible Season 2 Episode 5? Comment below.